I absolutely love my Christmas silhouettes, and this year I begged for Craig to add a moon and Santa's sleigh. This is how it went down. Also, this entire video is a voiceover because there may have been a lot of beeps and I don't have time for all that editing. When we first started this project, we used a template from Barbarella Home, so if you want all the exact instructions, head over to her Instagram. This moon was 5 foot, so it was quite large, and he had to cut all these little wooden planks and form them into a circle. This was probably the most difficult part of the moon because we had to connect all these little blocks, and we decided to use painter's tape, form them into a circle, turn it over, and then pour the glue in the cracks. I'm pretty sure it was at this point that the first divorce almost happened. This was not an easy job. After finally managing to form the planks into a circle, it was time to attach them to the plywood backing and add the concrete mixture for the moon aesthetic. As satisfying as this was, it was quite time consuming. I did not think I would ever get finished hand pouring this concrete mixture onto this plywood. And we're still pouring and smoothing and forming this into what is supposed to look like a moon. It's also quite messy, as you can see. At this point, it wasn't exactly coming together like I thought, and it was also getting quite heavy. Even though it was quite a thin layer of concrete, at this point is where we started getting a little nervous about the weight of this thing. Nonetheless, we kept working, and now Craig was knocking out the frame of the moon. In the template we had, there was supposed to be a frame that outlined the edge of the moon so that your Christmas lights could be underneath it and shine onto the moon. Up next, it was time to cut out Santa's sleigh and the reindeer. Because this template was so tiny and there were these tiny little antlers, this was quite the tedious job as well because we had to use a Dremel for everything and it kept overheating, so we had to stop and wait for it to cool down and go again. Then I decided the concrete moon needed some white paint because I wasn't feeling the gray, but we were getting closer. After all that, it was time to hang the moon, and this is where divorce number 2 almost happened because this thing was so heavy, it was such a pain, this was not going to happen. After several attempts to get this thing on the house, we decided this is not for us, and we scrapped the whole thing. At this point, we decided to start all over by using foam instead of plywood. Not gonna lie, we had the second moon knocked out in just a few hours. In the original template for the plywood moon, the lights were supposed to be on the inside rim so they would light up the moon. This time we just decided to cut our losses, hot glue the lights on the back so they would silhouette up against the house, and move on with this project. This moon was so much easier to manage, Craig could walk it up on the roof by himself. After going back and forth trying to decide the best way to hang this giant moon from the eave of our house, he decided it would be best just to throw a 3-inch screw in the eave and slam the styrofoam onto the screw. Hey, it worked, so who am I to argue? Also, we just like to point out if the Secret Service is hiring, look at those skills on that sloped roof. Anyway, the moon was mounted and all that was left was to turn on the lights. Ta-da! Y'all, we plugged this thing in and realized that we used non-LED lights and they look pink. I am not touching this moon again, we will deal with it next year. Merry Christmas, y'all!